So, Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for being here with us. Lord, we thank you for this history. These are not cunningly devised fables. But, Lord, truly it is your word. And holy men of God spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. David makes some mistakes today. And you don't hide them. As so many ancient mythological literatures will do of their heroes, you don't hide the failures of your people. And how grateful we are, Lord, our salvation is not based on our victories or failures. Our salvation is based upon the Lamb of God who died and rose again and paid for our sins, so that as we sang, we could be righteous before you. Lord, you are so good. May our hearts overflow tonight, and may your word just come alive to us and speak to us in whatever challenges, struggles, or things we face. May we sense your presence in a wonderful and a powerful way. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, Saul and his men circled about one side of the mountain, and David and his men went on that side of the mountain. And David made haste to get away for fear of Saul, for Saul and his men compassed David and his men round about to take them. But there came a messenger unto Saul, saying, Haste thee and come, for the Philistines have invaded the land. Wherefore Saul returned from pursuing after David, and went against the Philistines. Therefore they called the name of that place Selah Hamaleakoth. I know you knew that. David went up from thence, and he dwelt in the strongholds, that beautiful hideout of En-gedi with the waterfalls and the lush green vegetation, and a little sliver there of a crack in the side of the mountain with many caves. And so it came to pass, when Saul was returned from following the Philistines, chapter 24, verse 1, that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men. These are select warriors, think more of an elite force than your average Joe, out of all Israel. And he went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. And that's what En-gedi is, the well of the goat, well of the kid. And there are lots of them around there jumping all over the place. And it came, and as he came, to the sheepcotes by the way, where there was a cave, and you can go see them. There's a bunch of them. Some are inaccessible, some are easy to get to. Saul went in to cover his feet. Question? May I cover his feet? Thank you. I think you can figure it out. Some try to argue he's taking a nap, but that wouldn't fit, because in Judges chapter 3, when Ehud went in and he killed Eglon, remember the king, and then he locked the parlor doors against him and ran away, and his servants thought he was in covering his feet until they were embarrassed. I don't think they'd be embarrassed about a nap. But then they opened the door and found him there laying dead. He's going in to go to the bathroom, covering his feet. Listen, if you're in En-gedi, it is so brilliantly bright with the sand and the desert area around there. The lush green helps, but everything else is just tan sand, wilderness. And so you come out of that and you go into a dark cave. You can't see a thing. And it takes time for your eyes to adjust. So Saul's essentially blind coming in. If you're wondering, how could this really happen? Simple. Go there and look. You come in and you're just blindly reaching around. So here's David and his men hanging out, and here comes Saul. Samuel died. As they're adjusted. Saul went in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. Gee, what a coincidence. Or is it a test? Neither was there anything David said to him. They didn't know, behold, hold. No, psst, hey, behold, the day's here. This could be really embarrassing. I mean, how much noise is there that they're able to talk in some fashion? Just play it through in your mind, okay? The day of which the Lord said to you, behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand. The what thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Come on, get him. Get him. David arose, and he's sneaking up. And I wonder if he, pulled his knife out, his short sword, and the men are like, pulls it up, cuts off the skirt of his robe. Oh! David arose, cut into the skirt of Saul's robe, privily. What a letdown. They're like, no. And it came to pass afterward, look at this, that David's heart smote him because he'd cut off Saul's skirt. His heart was sensitive to this. I am mocking, in a sense, this is an affront to Saul's royal dignity. I'm marking him. His heart convicted him. And he said unto his men, crawled back over to them. By the way, this is taking some time. The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed. Look at the respect David has, not necessarily for the man himself, but for the position he occupies. The Lord's anointed. God forbid that I should stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. And so David stayed his servants. One thing I really love and appreciate about David, he was anointed king by Samuel, right? Okay, anointed king. He knows he's going to become king. Wasn't necessarily given a timetable, just this promise. And rather than go out there and try to, schmooze the people like Absalom will or others, David trusted that if this is the calling that God has for my life, he will bring it to pass. And there are times where it looks like it's completely contrary to what God had revealed as his will. He's now fleeing, and he's had to leave his home and his wife, and then he has to go to Ahimelech, and Ahimelech, then he's got to flee to Gath. And so, yes, he's telling lies, and there's been some problems that he's had as he's done this, but he's doing the best he can with circumstances that do not fit at all what God has spoken to him through Samuel. We don't really we'll get in next week a little bit. He gets a little frustrated, but we never hear him just completely melting down. We never hear him beginning to rail against, what kind of God am I serving that would do this to me? If you think about it, you consider what he's going through. He can't turn the page. There's a lot of character that's revealed. He cuts the guy's edge of his robe. Everybody else in the cave is egging him on to kill him, and even cutting his robe, he's convicted. There's a love for God here. And what I've always appreciated about David, I hope you will take into the calling and the work God has for your life as well. If God has gifted you and God has called you, if you just remain faithful in a loving relationship with him, he is going to open the doors and, quote, promote whatever direction he wants for you to place you where he wants you to be. The Lord will bring it. If you let the Lord bring it, the Lord will sustain it. Pastor Chuck has always said, if you strive to attain a ministry or whatever, you make it happen, then you're going to have to keep it together. But if you let God bring it of his own timing and you let God build it, then God will sustain it. And there's such a simple but so important lesson there. David was a man with an incredible promise to lead the people of Israel. He's not out trying to find the powerful, the movers and the shakers and lobby them against Saul. He's not trying to get people on his side. And he's just simply letting God work. And here's an opportunity for him to just shortcut the whole thing and get the king out of the way, knowing he's the next anointed king. And yet he can't do it out of respect for God's position of anointing upon the man. There's a very important snapshot here. If you play this in your mind and consider it. And so for me, I have always tried in my own heart, just, if God wants to take the church in different directions, if God wants that people, this is way bigger than we ever thought it would be when we got started, and we're blown away and humbled every time we show up and figure things out. I mean, it's crazy to me what's going on. But it's not my church. It's the Lord's church. He could take me out tonight. I'm blessed just to be able to be part of what I've been part of for the time I have. But if God wants us reaching out further or doing what, that's his business. And by the way, our hope is to see, not just to keep like this amoeba taking over the corner of Eagleview Boulevard and Dallin Forge Road. Our hope is to see men have their hearts stirred by God and go plant other cities and go plant other towns, and would love to see that. If we packed every church in Chester County, there are still tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people not going to church, not being reached, not being encouraged, not being equipped. But God will bring it. By the way, There is a day coming when the Lord is going to remove his church, and God's going to bring it. And there's a day coming when God is going to suddenly rearrange the nations, and suddenly Russia is going to have their power broken, and the EU, or whatever that Roman Empire was, is going to rise to the fore, and God is going to bring it, and it can come in one day. It's amazing how fragile the geopolitical world is. Those who are old enough to remember 13 days with the Cuban Missile Crisis, they did an interview with McNamara later in a movie called The Fog of War. And in that movie, it turns out they had way more warheads than they ever thought they had pointing at the United States. Instead of 24, it was like 117 plus 90 tactical nukes. They were ready to just take the whole thing up in flames. And nobody had any clue how close it was. One day, everything could change. But it's always incumbent upon the Lord to bring it. He does not need our help. The husband out there who wants to help God out in dealing with his wife, you know, the wife out there wants to help God out dealing with her husband, you know what? God knows his job. Best thing you do is pray for them. Pray for them and let God, and it'll be divine. And then you can just be sweet and kind because it was there, you know, divine fingerprints on the back of the head with the hair, you know, much better. When God does the spanking, it's all over. It's just all over. Well, so anyway, David stayed his servants, verse 7, these words would not allow them to rise against Saul. That had to be interesting. Saul rose up completely oblivious out of the cave, went on his way. Wow. And David also arose afterward and went out of the cave and cried after Saul, saying, "My lord the king." Saul turned around, looked behind him, and said, "I wasn't alone." Sorry, I added that. Just probably would come first in my mind. David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed himself. And David said to Saul, "Wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, Behold, David seeketh thy hurt?" Now he's giving Saul a graceful out. Okay, Saul, maybe this isn't from your heart, but there's some palace intrigue going on, saying that I secretly desired to usurp the throne and to wipe you out and to destroy your family, and your advisors have been lying to you and you believe them. So who's giving you this story, Saul? Where is this coming from? Saying that David seeks your hurt. "Behold, this day your eyes have seen how that the Lord has delivered you today into my hand in the cave. And some bade me to kill thee, but mine eyes spared thee. And I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed." Again, he respects the office more than the individual. "Moreover, my father," humble way of addressing him, "see, yea, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not, know thou, and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee, yet thou huntest my soul to take it." You pursue me like an enemy. "The Lord judge between me and thee." Will he? We'll see that soon enough. "And the Lord avenge me of thee." Will he? We'll see that soon enough. "But my hand shall not be upon thee. As saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked." Ooh. What's he trying to say, Willis? What's he saying? What is Saul doing? Pursuing him. Is there any cause? No. So what is Saul's behavior? Wicked. Wickedness proceeds from the wicked, but my hand shall not be upon thee. That's... After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea? You're wasting your time with somebody insignificant. "The Lord therefore judge," second time he says it, "and be judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand." And it came to pass, when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, in front of his 3,000 handpicked men, who know the rules of engagement. If your enemy comes in and you got a clean shot that get rid of all your headaches, they would have all taken it. By the way, many of these 3,000 handpicked men used to be under David's command. They know him. When David made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, Saul said, "Is this thy voice, my son David?" And Saul lifted up his voice and he wept. And he said to David, "Thou art more righteous than I." I wonder if you remember that from Samuel. Be given to a neighbor who's better than you. "Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil." That's Pretty straightforward. Thou hast showed this day how that thou hast dealt well with me, for as much as when the Lord hath delivered me into thine hand, thou killedst me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go away well? No. Wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. And now, behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king. My question? Great. How about stepping aside? No, can't do that. I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hand. Swear now, therefore, unto me by the Lord that thou wilt not cut off my seed, my descendants, which was common when a new administration or king would take over, after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men got them back into the hold, or up into their security. And so chapter 25, and Samuel died, which I think had to be hard for David. Who knows, for the record, without a shadow of a doubt, that David's the next king? Samuel. The anointing was relatively private. Brothers had were there. The brothers saw it happen, but perhaps don't fully understand all the implications. David has just lost essentially the one person who could tell the nation this is who God wants. So from our perspective, the natural mind, that means what has been promised to him, the advocate for it, just disappeared, which would make it a little harder to bring it to pass. But again, David in his faith, if this is what God has, God will bring it to pass, and God will bring it in his timing. So I think this had to be a bit of a difficult thing for him. He's lost his advocate. He's lost his counselor. Samuel died. All the Israelites were gathered together. They lamented him because he had been faithful to lead them. And they buried him in his house, or probably the garden or courtyard there in the compound of it. Usually you don't get buried in your house, but in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. And there was there a man in Maon, and this is again central kind of Judah area, whose possessions were in Carmel. Now that's not Mount Carmel where Elijah fights the prophets of Baal. This is Carmel in the central swath kind of Judah. They're near En-Gedi and all that kind of center belly of that territory, that region of Judah, near Adullam and all that. There was a man in Carmel whose possessions were there. A man was very great, verse 2. He had 3,000 sheep. Job had 7,000. And 1,000 goats. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. It's a time of festivity. It's a time of essentially reaping from the herd. It's a great time, good time for hospitality, very festive. Now the name of the man was Nabal, which means fool or churlish. Honey, what do you want to name him? Bob? No. Samuel? No. Fred? No. I know. What? Fool. Hot? Anyway, Nabal. There's someone to thank for that name. And the name of his wife was Abigail, which is joy of the father or source or cause of delight. Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. Only mentioned in that way are Rachel and Esther. So the Hebrew is letting us know she stands out among women. And of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish, harsh, and evil in his doings. And he was of the house of Caleb. And Matthew Henry said, many an Abigail is tied to a Nabal. Ooh. Oh. I know what you're thinking. So why did you marry him? Help me out. How could they possibly have been married? Usually they'd be arranged, good chance. And what would be attractive to him, say, to her family? He's wealthy. He'll take care of her. Well, there's more than just wealth. There's tenderness, there's kindness, there's all kinds of things that are important. So David heard, verse 4 in the wilderness, that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men, not very threatening, small little group. And David said to the young men, get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus shall you say to him that liveth in prosperity, peace be both to thee, peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. Shalom. And now I have heard that thou hast shears, and now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not. Neither was there anything or aught missing unto them all the while that they were in Carmel. Okay, we're a roving band of 600 guys who get hungry. And the whole time we were a roving band of 600 guys around your sheep, we didn't take a single one. So David and his men are clearly, they're not lawless. What was David before he became anointed king? A shepherd. So if you're thinking, well, this is a bit forward of David to show up at someone's house like, hi, hello, neighbor, we want to, he shows up and says, hey, we'd like to share of that great time of reaping there for the shearing and all that. David is a shepherd. He knows the rules of the game. They have helped to watch this man's sheep and protect them, and having helped out, they should expect some kind of reasonable return. So he fully expects that this should be reciprocated. We helped you, you help us. So ask your young men, verse 8, they will show thee. Wherefore let the young men that I send to you find favor in thine eyes, for we come on a good day, a festive day. So give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh into thine hand, unto thy servant and to thy son, putting himself in submission, so to speak, David. No, were there any threats? Any unkind words or harsh words or demands? When David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and they ceased. Why did they cease? Boom. Ball's in his court, right? And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? Wait a minute. What's on iTunes over in Philistines? What's the song they're singing? Saul has slain his thousands. David has slain his 10,000s. It's still a big hit over in Philistia and Gath. And meanwhile, he's saying, who's David? He's on the top 40 charts. What do you mean, who's David? I hope you know I'm kidding. I'll get an email. You really thought they were iTunes? No. Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? Well, you know enough to know his lineage. There be many servants nowadays that break away. Everybody's quitting their master. I mean, it's happening all over the place. Why would I help him? By the way, that's a slam of unfaithfulness. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh, and yes, I'm being irritating for a reason, that I have killed for my shears, and give it unto them, those men, whom I know not whence they be? What's the answer? Drop dead. In case you didn't know, just go away. You kidding me? So David's young men turned their way. There's not much more to stick around for. And they went again, and they came and told David all those sayings. David said unto his men, that's it. Gird ye every man his sword. All right, everybody, lock and load. And they girded also every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. You know, it's interesting. It's been some time now he's getting the short end of the stick from Saul. Yes? Okay. And he's tolerated it. Yes? Refuses to kill him in the cave. You know, basically keeps, when he delivers a town, he just retreats rather than have a major confrontation. They're not marauding the people. He's putting up with a lot because Saul's the Lord's anointed. Then you get a guy like Nabal who's Joe Q public, who disses you on one request. You're ready to go kill him. Funny how we treat people we think we can get something from, as to oppose how we treat people we think we're above, so-called. Perhaps you know exactly what I'm talking about. How kind you'll be to people you think can help you. How patient. Oh, you'll be socially gracious. That's great. I can't believe you insulted me. But that's okay. It's great. But the people you think you're in control of, I mean it now. Where's your supervisor? Come on. Right? Jesus was consistent with everybody except one group. And what group was that from Sunday? The hypocrites. Rich young rulers, prostitutes, lepers, destitute, you name it, patient and kind. He set us a good example. Somebody once said, you know whether or not you have the heart of a servant when someone treats you like a servant. But anyway, he girded his sword. He's having a bad day. We all have flesh. We could understand. 400 guys, let's go. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. That's old King Jimmy for insulted them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. And they were a wall, shepherds appreciate that, unto us both by night and by day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do. For evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial. That's a term for he's so worthless that a man cannot speak to him. Are you one of those people? People can't speak truth to you? You don't want to hear what they have to say? There may even be wives in this room who would like to say some things to you, husbands, but they figure it's not going to be worth it because it'll just go nuclear. There may be husbands in this room who want to say things to you, wives, but you are so difficult to approach for whatever reason that they suffer in silence instead of speaking what's on their heart because it's just going to turn against them. It's true, it happens. Jesus was always approachable. Little children love to come to him. He set us such a great example. The night that he's betrayed, he washes Judas's feet. It was almost an overture and an opportunity. You don't have to do this. Man. Nobody can talk to him. So then Abigail made haste. Notice, she doesn't try to go talk to him. She made haste. She took 200 loaves, 2 bottles of wine, and that's not like state store wine. These are 2 animal skins. It can be quite a bit. 2 animal skins full of wine. 5 sheep ready dressed. They just happen to have 5 sheep slaughtered, prepared, and ready to go. 5 measures of parched corn. 100 clusters of raisins. 200 cakes of figs. Ladies, I know you have this in your kitchen at a moment's notice too. By the way, this speaks of the size of the celebration, and it also speaks of the wealth that they had to quickly pull this together. 200 cakes of figs. And by the way, there's still enough for the party. And she laid them on donkeys. And the idea in the East is, you take a gift, it might fit on 1 donkey, but you put it on 3. Why? Because when the 3 donkeys show up, you're like, oh, there's 3 donkeys. Oh, wow, and I must be important. No, never mind. You're taking 1 and stretching it to 3. So she said to her servants, go on before me. Let them see the gift. Let them see a few donkeys pass by, a bunch of food. And behold, I will come after you. She may be primping. Wouldn't hurt to kind of spiff up, wear a nice outfit. But she told not her husband Nabal. She knows she can't talk to him. And it was so, as she rode on the donkey, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, here's another coincidence, David and his men were coming down against her. So they're both kind of coming down to this gully here, and they just happen to meet. Now David had said, verse 21, surely in vain, for no good reason, have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness. I wasted my time helping him, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited me, repaid me evil for good. And you can't take this. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave all that pertain to him by morning light, any that pisseth against the wall. When I read that to the biddies were like, ooh, They're like, Dad, what does that mean? Girls, you have brothers. Who in the family pees against the wall? And they're like, the boys. I'm like, you got it. So to cut off all the boys would be to cut off a name in Israel. Everybody? But the idea is he's just going to cut everybody off. Old King James for defining boys, but the biddies were kind of, what did you just say? I'm explaining to you the Bible, so when you find it, you'll know what it means. We have some very interesting conversations. God do so to David and more. What is he making? A vow. Is it a good one? Does he really have cause? He's got a minor offense. And he's going to go do a major wipeout. When Abigail saw David, perhaps clearly seeing he was a little put off, she hastened and she lighted off the donkey, that's a sign of respect, to come off of her mount and to fall down before David on her face. And she bowed herself onto the ground. Here this lady of wealth is on the ground on her face. And she fell at his feet and she said, "Upon me, my Lord, upon me, let this iniquity be. And let thine handmaid, I pray, speak in thine audience. Just let me have it. Go ahead. I'll take all the judgment." She's probably 95 pounds soaking wet. You know what I mean? Just this little skinny thing shows up, dressed up, falls on her face in front of 400 guys who fight, saying, "Let me have it." What are they going to do? 400 guys are really going to beat up some little lady who's asking for them to give her a best shot? No. What if a man had gone? Would it have had the same impact? I don't think so. She's a smart cookie. "Go ahead. Let me have it. Bring it out. I'll take it. Let it be upon me." You can see David like kind of putting his sword back. Like, "And I pray, let me speak in your audience and hear the words of your handmaiden." She asked for permission, respect, which he has not received from her husband. "Let not, my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, worthlessness, even Nabal, for as his name is, so is he." What does his name mean? Fool. That would be kind of hard to hear a private interview with your spouse having this kind of opinion. How did he get there? He earned it. "Even for as his name, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is his game." Oh, sorry, that's not in there. "Folly is with him. But I, thy handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood." How is he withholding him from doing it? From this 95 or so soaking wet pound woman saying, "Let me have it." "Seeing how the Lord has withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal. And now this blessing which thy handmaiden hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given to the young men that follow my Lord." What she's saying, she's very diplomatic here. She's asking for an audience. She's asking for him to listen. She immediately says, "Listen, I've come to keep you from shedding innocent blood because, yes, it's an affront, but it really doesn't rise to this level of response." And by the way, we'll get through here in the text, but for David to go ahead and start murdering wealthy landowners who don't give him respect, what will that do to his potential as a future king? How many people are going to want a king who comes in and seizes your assets and kills you in the process? Won't happen. So she's actually keeping him from marring the plan and perhaps the call of God for him. Wow. Has she insulted him? Has she offended him? Has she lectured him? Has she badgered him? A good wife to study. She is speaking truth to him in a way he can receive. "The Lord has withheld you from coming to shed blood, from avenging yourself. Let all the enemies of my Lord be like Nabal. And now this blessing which your handmaiden has brought to you, let it go to the young men." What she's saying there is, this gift isn't very big. It's really not worthy of someone of your position, but at least the young men might accept it. A sign of humility and entreating and speaking to power is the best way to put it. She is speaking to him in a way that he is not inflamed or disrespected. "Let it be given to the young men that follow my Lord. I pray thee," verse 28, what? "Forgive." What we got here is another chance for someone to extend forgiveness. "I pray, forgive the trespass of thine handmaiden." She's taking the blame for Nabal's nonsense. Wow, what a wife. "For the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord." By the way, what are you doing here fighting a battle of David? "And evil hath not been found in thee all thy days." So let's not start now. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee, that would be Saul, and to seek thy soul. But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. He'll be wrapped and protected like a precious object. And the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out of the middle of a sling. What does that remind you of? David, remember when you were fighting the right battles of God and how easy God made that? Don't ruin that reputation now by getting personal vengeance. Let me make it a little more modern. Don't blow your witness. It shall come to pass when the Lord, verse 30, shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning thee, and he shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel, that this shall be no grief unto thee, killing Israelites who had the only offense of insulting him, nor offense of heart unto my Lord. She can see down the road of what today's actions will bring. Either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt well with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid. That's interesting. Whether to give favor to their estate, or is there something else? Very interesting. So David said to Abigail, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. What she said to David was not only true, it was very factual. It was also an admonition, so to speak, or a rebuke, but she said it in such a way that he could thank her. Wow. Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent you this day to meet me. And she said it in such a way, listen, ladies, no offense, but in that culture, women did not have the same kind of position. For him to listen to a woman with 400 buddies behind him ready to go to war, that means she did a very good job. Just saying. You can study it for yourself, look at the culture, but she presented it in such a way that it really struck a chord in his heart. Proverbs 14:1 says, The wise woman builds up her house with her hands, but the foolish woman plucks it apart with her hands, same potential, different outcomes based on how they invest. Interesting. This is a wise woman. Blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with my own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hast hastened and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. Again, he was coming in to just remove everybody. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him. And he said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and I have accepted thy person. What a great example of interceding on Nabal's behalf. Well, she had to go home, verse 36. And Abigail came to Nabal, and, behold, clueless, he held a feast in his house like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him. Yo-ho, for he was very drunken. Great. Wherefore she told him nothing less or more until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. Give me your guess. What do you think happened? Either heart attack or stroke. Please notice, may the Lord deal with your enemies like a stone slung out of a sling, and then Nabal turns into a stone. Sling, stone, sling, stone. Am I the only one seeing this? Anybody? Anybody? He became as a stone. Came to pass about 10 days afterward that the Lord smote Nabal, and he died. Wow. Do you think that's what David expected? Abigail thought she'd be stuck for a lifetime. So what are you saying, Pastor Chris? If I'm in a bad situation, I should start praying for some? No, I am not saying that. No. We have no idea what tomorrow brings. You leave at 8:30 in the morning or 7 or 5, whenever your commute is, and you leave with harsh words, you don't know if you're coming home. There are no guarantees. That may be the last time you see them. But but we're so hard-hearted that we were right, that we'd rather leave it with a break in the fellowship between us and our spouse than humbling ourselves and saying, look, I don't want to leave here with things like this. One thing I love about going to Israel is that they understand the fact that things could turn very quickly because they have enemies all around them. They're prepared as prepared can be. And we know they're not going to get wiped out because there's got to be a third temple and Jesus has got to return the Mount of Olives and it's all Israeli territory. So I don't panic because we already know the end from the beginning on this one. No one's going to overrun them and take them over. It's not going to happen. But they still may have to defend themselves. So they make sure when they leave in the morning, they leave on good terms. Different mindset. Different appreciation for each day that we probably ought to take heed to. So he died. Verse 39, when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach. What other irritation could God take out at some point? Saul. I'll say it for what it is. This had to be, in a strange way, some encouragement to David that, when the minute God's finished with Saul, he's going to be off his back. Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach. Keep going, God. Doesn't say it, but I'm sure he thought it. From the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. David was intended for evil, and God interrupted him. Wow, that's awesome. And he used a person to do it. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail. She's incredibly smart. She's, what did it say? Of a fair countenance. Hey, how'd you like to get married? And so he communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife. And when the servants of David were come to Abigail to Carmel, and this was not uncommon to make a proposal through servants, they spake unto her, saying, David sent us unto thee to take thee to him to wife. And she arose, and she bowed herself on her face to the earth, and said, Behold, let thine handmaiden be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. By the way, she's a widow, but she's also the possessor of the assets. She's wealthy. Why would a wealthy lady, who could pretty much do whatever she wants, why would you want to marry a guy like David? He was cute. No, not sure he was cute. I know, so I heard that out there. He's a man of action. Okay, that might be attractive. He's been a man of power, and that they sing he's slain his 10,000s. That's attractive. But I think the people have a sense, there's an expectation among the people, God has a plan for him. And it's been getting out. She talked about the Lord's going to use you. Don't let this mar what God's going to do with you. And I think in many ways, it speaks to his character, it speaks to his person, but it also speaks to, with 600 men behind him and what's going on, for a woman of this stature to marry him speaks that he's becoming a respected chieftain, for lack of a better way to put it, in sort of that Bedouin type world. He's becoming respected among the people, that he's keeping a band of 600 men together. He is fighting the battles of the Lord. He is dealing with the Philistines. And so he's rising. He's a rising star, so to speak, and she's more than willing to accept his proposal. Very interesting. Well, wow, this is kind of romantic. Hang on. So she hastened, and she arose, and she rode upon a donkey, and 5 damsels of hers that were with her went after her. And she went after the messengers of David and became his wife. Next verse. And David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. Oh. Here you're Abigail, right? And you're right in, and this is great. I'm going to be his wife. And who's that? Oh, that's Ahinoam. Who's she? She's his other wife he just got. Funny thing. Oh, great. Is this what God intended? One man for one woman for life. And we see back in Genesis 5, there the line of Cain, there's Lamech, not Noah's Lamech, another Lamech, and he had 2 wives, Zillah and Ada, I think. And he was boasting about how he'd killed a man and all that. But here began the corruption of what God intended. Polygamy was very common before the flood, and after the flood became common again. It existed before God ever gave the law to Moses. So when the law showed up, God at least regulated it. You can't marry your sister, your wife's sister, because that'll just provoke them. It began to be regulated. But it's not what God intended. By the way, there are groups lobbying for polygamy in the United States. What is the biggest group lobbying for it? Who? Not the Mormons, the Muslims. And with the changes going on for gay marriage and states caving into that, please know, and okay, it's 19. It's 2013. It's August. You will see sometime soon the discussion of polygamy showing up within maybe the next 5 years, Lord willing, if he hasn't tarried. It'll become a discussion. And it will begin to have the same strategy of this: why should we disenfranchise people who want to express their love for more than one person at a time? And after all, it is biblical, because look, there are people in the Bible, and there's going to be a whole whitewash campaign. But trust me, it's going to come. It's not going to be far behind what is currently the discussion. You'll see. So she hastened, arose, brought 5 damsels, and got to meet Ahinoam of Jezreel. And they were also both of them his wives. And again, this speaks of him as a rising star, as a chieftain who would have multiple wives and whatever. For Saul had given Michal his daughter, David's wife, the first one, he gave him away. He gave her away to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Gallium. Thou art more righteous than I. Thou hast rewarded me good where I've rewarded you evil. You didn't kill me. Now I know you will surely be king. God's going to establish your kingdom. Don't destroy my descendants. You've rewarded me good. So I'm going to go home and give your wife away. Saul gives his daughter, who was married to David, for 200 foreskins, gives her away. Now, why would he do that? It's a good old-fashioned poke in the eye. And I'm sure he made sure it was published among the kingdom. Question: what are the odds of them reconciling? With a move like this, not going to happen. 5 minutes. It's a reoccurring problem. I'll read for 3 chapters, and we get through 2. When I told the biddies that Solomon had 1,000 wives, 700 wives, 300 concubines, they went. You could see their little minds trying to wrap around the concept. 700 mommies, 300, what are concubines? Secondary mommies. Okay. That's at least 3 anniversaries a day plus. That's 1,000 in-laws. And probably some very challenging times. And I had to share with the biddies, in the flesh, 1,000's not enough to satisfy. But in the spirit, 1 is more than enough. This world is trying so hard to fill its flesh with so many things, and they're not satisfied. So they keep putting out more and more extreme garbage, more provocative, more salacious. TV this week, which no, I didn't see it, but I've seen headlines. And some people pretend to be appalled, and others are saying it's not far enough. Without Jesus, you're never going to be satisfied. T-minus 1 week till the herd's here. But without Jesus, you'll never be satisfied. You'll always be looking. It'll be some new synthetic drug. It'll be some new crazy sexual thing. It'll be some new drunkenness, some new whatever, some new party, new rage, new extreme, new whatever, and you'll still never be satisfied. Because you're trying to fill a hole that God created in your heart to be filled only by His Spirit. That He wants to be in a relationship with you. He wants you to open your heart to Him by faith. He will not force you to do that. And as you open your heart to him and you ask the Lord to forgive you, he will come in and change you from the inside out. He will fill your heart. He will settle your soul. And he'll make his presence known to you. And suddenly things that were never good enough, you'll be finding you just thank the Lord you even have what you have. Because he has filled you. And he has satisfied you. And he has overflowed your heart. David said, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and my cup overfloweth. He was talking about God's presence. So please don't leave here left to yourself, your own devices in this world with an empty heart that doesn't know the Lord. Because Jesus said, what good is if you gain the entire world? That's not going to satisfy if you still lose your soul. And he loves you so much, he took your place. So it's interesting to see. It's great to see David's faith. It's more fun to learn at his mistakes. But even godly men, if they're not careful, can look for things that will never satisfy, that should only be found in God. Just a thought. Let's stand. Let's pray. We're out of time. Father God, we thank you so much that you are here with us this evening, that you love us. And Lord, I thank you that you have great plans and desires for each person in this room. And the first desire is that they should come to the knowledge of the truth and not perish in their sins. That is through receiving your Son by faith, turning from their sin and opening their heart and asking, quite simply, as a bride would ask a groom to receive her, asking for your forgiveness, asking for a new life in Christ and your Holy Spirit to fill them. And then, Lord, you also have great desire to use them. You have given to each one in this room talent. And you want it invested, not buried, not in fear or afraid, hiding it, but willing to invest the truth that has been shared with them, to talk to other people, friends, neighbors, relatives, strangers, about the hope of heaven that we have through Jesus. And that they might be used to bring glory to your name, that the power of the resurrection is alive and well in changed men and women who have received the truth, accepted Christ as their Savior, and changed from the inside out as the Holy Spirit cleans the cup and the plate and makes them new. Thank you for this time, and thank you so much for your word. In Jesus' name, amen.